All right, everyone, thanks for coming. I'm going to be talking a little bit about, it'll show up, asset libraries. So turning a new page with asset libraries. Really quick, a little bit about me. I graduated about 2 years ago from Franklin and Marshall College. I have a joint major in computer science and studio art. I've been working at Excella for about 1.5 years now, a little bit over. I do web development and UI UX, mainly Angular and TypeScript. And you can reach me at this email address if you have any questions. And I believe this will be posted to the Meetup site.
The slides will go up when we put the video of this up.
Perfect. All right. So for our asset library, so this was all kind of born from the project we were working on. What our client wanted was to have one application built in multiple different modules by multiple different teams. And so they were bringing in a lot of these different teams, but they wanted this application to have a homogeneous look and feel throughout, so just the same look and feel while being done by different organizations. Excella being the first team on the ground, we got to design the look and feel. So I showed up on my first day, and we actually didn't have a designer. And I'm a software developer, but I have a little bit of background with design, so I decided that I would be the designer and step up to that. And so I started having conversations with our client and designing what all of our components would look like, buttons, text inputs, things like that. So over a few months, we created all of these components and we had them in a style guide, but it was just a style guide. It wasn't living, and so everything you'd have to recreate on your own. And so we needed a way for our team and also other teams that will be rolling on to use these assets and keep them looking the same and feeling the same, functioning the same. And so that's how we decided to make a fully functional asset library. I really wanted this to be a good way to kind of walk through, pick out what you're looking for depending on the scenario, and then quickly be able to put that into wherever you'd like it to be. So the goals were to make it as easy as possible to rapidly create new components. So I wanted the styling to be baked in, I wanted the functionality to be baked in, and also functional code all in one place if we had something a little bit more difficult to implement. So our front end stack, we were using something called PrimeNG as our UI framework, which is good because that handles all of the functionality. I also wanted to make sure our good practices were innate. I wanted to make it too easy to implement things the correct way and to make it all work correctly. We were also required to be totally 508 compliant, and so simple things like ARIA labels are a requirement for 508. 508, if you're not sure, if you've never heard of it, is it's for people with maybe disabilities, color blindness, or just like blindness in general. And so there's certain things you have to code in specifically in order to make that completely accessible. We also wanted to keep the application looking and feeling the same throughout. Our client was very focused on limiting bad data through good design, and this design was going to be going out to every team that would be working on this. And then another great way we could use this is to educate new teams or newer members on our team on how our application worked and how our coding worked and kind of felt throughout. And then having all the assets in one easy to find place so that you don't have to go searching around your application to find, let's say, one text input that you used at one point. Then you have to change the code from that to work for your certain uses, and so that can get really timely and time costly, so we wanted that to be easy. So what we came up with was something akin to Legos. As you can see, the studs of the Legos are the TypeScript, and that's how everything fits together and functions. The SCSS is the color of the brick, and it's any design that it may have. And then the HTML is the body of the brick. And what we were looking for was a way to make it so you could just pick up a single brick and place it with other bricks, as opposed to having to color the brick yourself and glue them together. And so the idea was that it would be so easy you could put it together without thumbs. You could just kind of pick up and place and build whatever you'd like. So the way we did it is we wanted it to be a single page so that you didn't have to click through multiple pages to find what you were looking for. We wanted everything to be right there for you so you could scroll through. We wanted it to be categorical, so if you're looking for buttons, we have all the buttons in one place and you can pick which one works for your needs. But also for our more complicated components, we have an address validation component, and we wanted that all to be in one place with some instructions on how to use it, how to implement it, and how it works. We wanted the components to be completely functional, so that you could play with them and figure out if they were what you were looking for. Maybe they just looked like what you were looking for. Maybe there's something else. And then once you know that it's what you want, copy paste just one single block of code and place it wherever you'd like it, so that you could use it immediately. And what goes along with that is global styling. So you don't have to worry about your styling. We were using Sass, and so we had all of that baked in. So all you would have to do is just copy your HTML. And the result, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to show it. It was for a federal client. However, I've made something pretty simple, but it'll give you the gist of what we were looking at. All right. Ooh, can you see that? Let's see if this works. Yeah. All right. So this is just kind of the gist of what we created. It was more stylized. However, we wanted it to be really simple. You could find anything you're looking for, maybe some like general information, and then you have your buttons and text boxes. So say you're looking for a button. You click on the buttons and you see a few different types of button. This is just a base button. It's got one color and it's clickable. This one's disabled, it's gray, and it's not clickable, pretty clear, and then an alternate. So say you want the base button. Then you can go into the code snippet, find the code snippet, copy it and paste it, put it wherever you'd like. Fits together really easily, and through our UI framework, PrimeNG, and through Sass, you wouldn't have to worry about any functionality or any styling. All right, and the benefits of this are pretty self-evident, but they make it really easy to rapidly create whatever component you're looking for. So the entire front end can be done in maybe just an hour by dragging and pasting these different things into where you want them to be. This ensures good practices. Really easy to forget 508 things. And so in order to not have to comb through later and make sure you're totally 508 compliant, you can be sure that you're 508 compliant because we had those pieces in this code. This also keeps you from having to recreate all of these components from a design, because naturally, if you're recreating these components, they're going to be a little bit different. They're going to function a little bit differently. Maybe your margining will be different. And eventually, if you have multiple different teams doing this, it's going to be really jarring going, and this button works one way and this button works a different way. As I said, we wanted to educate other teams on our components, as well as our own team and new members. And this puts everything in one easy to find place so that you know, okay, I want to find these 5 components. I can just go into this one application and we're good. So quickly, just to touch on the lessons learned, this really taught me the beauty of Sass. Sass has a lot of really great pieces to it, especially global styling. So you can have this throughout your entire application. Nesting and inheritance is really nice. So for the buttons, if you have your one base button, that's a color, you can then nest under that what you want your disabled and your alternate buttons to look like without a lot of hassle. And then variable support. So if you have a certain set of colors that you need, which we did for 508 compliance, you can just have those as variables, not hex codes, which can be easily changed or messed up. Also, making your own code snippets. As you saw just a second ago, the code snippet below was actually a self-made code snippet. There were a lot of tools out there a little while ago. However, a lot of them have been deprecated, and so it's really hard to get snippets of code that don't compile during the compilation process into your code. So that was a retrofitted text area to just show what you needed. It's scrollable. It looks like a text editor of some sort, and it does the job. Also shadow piercing, pretty interesting, and this has also been deprecated. It still works the same, but it's no longer called shadow piercing, but I love the name, so I'll never stop calling it shadow piercing. I think it sounds awesome. With a lot of UI managers and frameworks, what happens is the styling is added on during the compilation process, but after your styles have been compiled, and so they won't recognize that you have made changes to the styling, so you'll be sitting there changing your CSS over and over and not seeing any differences. So what happens is you need to put a styling between the compiled application and the DOM. And so that's where shadow piercing comes in. This places your styling directly between the application and the DOM. And I'm just glazing over these. These are really interesting, so if anybody wants to know a little bit more about these, just ask me afterwards. And then in the future, so this was housed within our application, so our stack needed to be up and running in order for us or other teams to see this. So in the future, I'd like this to be hosted independently from our application so that other people can go check it out anytime they need to, and then any changes can be deployed to everyone, not just our application.